work for Norwegian Council, but I also come from Eritrea, which is a conflict-ridden country, a country that has gone through a lot of wars for about 30, 40 years, like almost my age. There was a time when we don't hear any bullet fired at night. We would feel like there's something unusual tonight, because we haven't had any fighting or firing. So I grew up in that kind of situation, and I empathize with your experiences in Afghanistan. And when I was listening to everyone's speech today and comments, I was like almost feeling that I'm one of you guys, an Afghani person. So that's my background. I've also been learning quite a lot, thanks to the comments made throughout the day, but even the last workshop. The way forward for the campaign that is going to be exercised by ECHRA is going to be, there is an emphasis on security and education, which is very important. If you don't have peace, if you don't have understanding of your rights, you need to be educated about rights. Earlier, someone was mentioning about women being sold in the market, and I think that can happen because of lack of education, not just because there is a bad government or a corrupt government. So the society needs to be educated about what constitutes human rights, the status of women, children, men, elderly people, everyone. So I think this is a good start. And there was also mention about justice, transitional justice and transitional democracy. And I think that's very important. In a conflict zone, there are a lot of people who commit a lot of crimes. And the solution may not be sometimes to punish them all, because there could be there thousands. And the cost for it in terms of time and money could be quite a lot. So transitional justice, I think, would encompass things like amnesty or addressing certain criminals while maybe giving some kind of rehabilitation to the rest of the soldiers or rebels and so on. So I think having an understanding of justice is very important. As they say, if you want to have a rule of law in any community, you need to have a culture of rule of law. Once we drive out of here, we know where to stop, how to cross the road, when to drive through, when there is this traffic light and so on. You don't have a police officer standing in every step of your movement. That's because we have inherited it as, and made it part of our culture to respect the traffic light, the signs, and so on. So you need to have that kind of culture. Democracy has to be part of your culture. Rule of law has to be part of your culture. So I think that's very important, whether mentioning it. The other issue is the reconciliation, which is quite relevant as well. Sometimes, yes, there are hatred, bloodshed, and everything, but you cannot continue, generation after generation fighting one another. There must be a solution based on reconciliation, on forgiving and not necessarily forgetting, but at least accepting that what happened should not happen again, but we shouldn't really use it to again commit more bloodshed and more fighting among one another. So reconciliation is very important, I think, and campaign against corruption, that's very interesting. Yes, of course, it's important. And then gender and race equality, which is very much part of human rights. Separation of state and religion, that's also interesting. I don't know how it could be, whether it could be something that you can succeed in the immediate future or not, but I think it's quite important. People should have the freedom to express their views, their ideas, without feeling like they're doing haram, everything they say is haram, and some religious authority dictating almost what you do in every sphere of your life. So I think there must be some kind of separation of state and religion. And letter campaign, which is, again, I think that's an immediate thing, an immediate task for everyone here in this room. writing to your own government in Afghanistan, as well as to your government here in the UK and in European Union level. That's lobbying, and I'm sure many of you do it already, and I know Dr. Nassim does it, even when he's campaigning for his community organization. He comes to the Lewisham Council, he speaks to the mayor, he goes to the parliament, he meets the MPs. That's a very good thing. You can expand it and use it also for your campaign on human rights. My group also spoke about the issue of poster campaign and the use of poetry. That's the use of art. Sometimes messages cannot just be passed through lectures and maybe like this kind of seminars. It could also, you can use art, poetry, especially in communities where illiteracy is very high. Songs, poems could play a major role in putting your message of human rights across to the whole community. Posters, images, they have a role as well. It could be about stopping abuse against women or children or anything, but you can use those kind of materials for your message. And of course, supporting teachers and educational centers across the country, which is very important, and I know it has already been mentioned almost by everyone, but I think teachers are very important cadres in any society, and they need to be protected and given enough incentives for them to stay within their own villages and towns and to educate their own communities. And the other issue was women leadership, which is, I am passionately for it. When the gentleman was speaking about it, I thought he was like almost speaking my mind as well. I wholeheartedly believe in women leadership. And luckily here in the UK for the last 15 years, I've always been working under women management. They're the best, perfect managers, yay. Perfect colleagues. So why not? Why not? And who said in traditional societies like Afghanistan, women cannot rule or cannot lead? They do. In Philippines, the Bangladesh, India, those countries around Pakistan, Afghanistan, they've all had women leaders. So why not in Afghanistan too? So that's a nice point. So why not you can campaign as part of the ride? Sorry? Yeah, okay. And okay, reintegration and reconciliation, again, it was mentioned. I think reintegration is quite important.
I'm just going to
yeah, sorry.
No, you're not doing anything wrong. We want him to add something.
Okay.
Sorry, keep you to say.
Sure, no
You're
problem.
not telling him off, I promise.
I'll tell you what they told me, what they just said to me. No problem. Okay, so there is the issue of reconciliation and reintegration. I think that's very important. When you have communities that has gone through a lot of wars, children growing up in that kind of situation, or those soldiers fighting with the different fighting forces, they need to be reintegrated into society to become normal citizens, to put away the guns and use the pen, any other productive material that can benefit them as well as their society. So reintegration, I think, is a very important rehabilitation process. And there was a mention about the 4 key factors for everything, which is quite inclusive: security, employment, education, and health. I think that summarizes everything. And the involvement of students, the final person, of young people, to go and be part of this campaign for human rights. I think that's the summary. And Dr. Nassimi and our colleague have been telling me about my own views of federalism. In just 2 minutes, I'll tell you what federalism is. I'm not sure if it's the best system of governance for Afghanistan, but it is a system of governance that can accommodate diversity. When you have cultural diversity, when you have resentments about one group dominating at the expense of the other, then federalism can be a more conducive system for the country. It is so because it divides the system of governance into at least 2 levels. You have the local autonomy, what we call here localism or local government. Your own mayor, your own councillors can be elected by you rather than be appointed by the central government in Kabul. And at the central level, instead of having the dominant group in terms of number or whatever to control everything, we can have a shared rule. So the different components of your society, whether it is a linguistic component or a cultural or a geographical, they can all be represented at the national level. So you can have a parliament that is composed of different cultural groups, which can also be divided into two sections, bicameral system they call it. So you have some maybe for minority groups and religious and other people to be nominated and represented, like the House of Lords we have here. And you would have a House of Commons, which is based on the elections and so on. So you make sure your national constitution is drawn in a way that reflects that diversity, recognizes it, and then celebrates it, rather than making one culture feel left out and another one otherwise. So that's the idea of federalism, which we can hopefully another time maybe raise it and talk about it in greater detail. But for now, thank you very much.
Thank you. Loud, okay? You just stand, maybe stand and face. You can
stand here.
Yeah. Just face the people and you can hear.
I want to conclude my idea before I told also, because I have to complete that. Okay, let's see the final situation and the things we're going to do for Afghanistan, because we are not alone. Okay, we have to say we have rectangle. In one angle there is the government, Afghan government. Another angle there is international community. Another angle, the people of Afghanistan, they are in Afghanistan. And the final angle, the people of Afghanistan abroad. Okay, so when we want to say here about the future of Afghanistan, what we can do, okay, really it's important to focus at first to international community, because Afghan government can't do anything without the power of international community. Afghan people, the same situation they have. And Afghan people, they are in abroad, okay, and for example here, we are here, okay, without the power of international community, we can't do anything. So, on behalf of me, it's my idea to do something related to international community. When we want to have some campaigns here, and we want to do as an Afghan refugee or as a student, there are many Afghan students here, okay, all related to emphasize to international community, because when we have this situation as we had for about 10 years in Afghanistan, it would be impossible to have peace, security, and good education. Because if we don't have security, or let's say peace, we couldn't have education. We couldn't have health and wealth together. Because all related to security, all related to peace. We Afghans, we are here. So as our colleagues here told some suggestion for how can we help to the people of Afghanistan from here. So it's better to write to the people, as our colleagues, to the people of international community, to do something related to the government. If we have this kind of government with this kind of, MPs, member of parliament, and especially warlords, we couldn't have good future for Afghanistan. Thank you.